Hello and welcome to the 18th Annual Tallgrass Film Festival. I am Chris Renteria, a filmmaker, Tallgrass alum, and film advisory board member. I'd like to thank our sponsors and anyone who is joining us today. If you are enjoying yourself, let everyone know on Facebook and Instagram and tag us at Tallgrass Film and hashtag Tallgrass 2020. I'd like to welcome Hidden City Director Karen Elizabeth Price. Karen Elizabeth Price, raised in North Carolina and based in Los Angeles currently. Karen is best known for directing Housequake, a feature documentary about the battle for control of Congress featuring Rahm Emanuel. Price won the Rhode Island International Film Festival's Directorial Discovery Award, and the film aired on the documentary channel, VOD, and streaming platforms including Netflix, Hulu, and Amazon. Price wrote and directed the narrative short Gone and the documentary Living by Instinct, Animals and the Rescuers, which premiered at the LA Shorts International Film Festival and the Hot Springs Documentary Film Festival, respectively, and aired on PBS stations. She co-produced the feature documentary John Lewis, Get in the Way, which premiered nationally on PBS, and has directed, produced, and written for numerous shows on such networks as Lifetime, A&E, and Discovery. She currently has several fiction and documentary projects in development. Price is on faculty at Duke University at Cinematic Arts and Documentary Studies and directs the Duke in Los Angeles academic program. She received an MFA from USC's School of Cinematic Arts, winning numerous awards, including a student Emmy. And I just want to say hello, Karen. How are you today?
Good.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing your film with the festival. For those who haven't seen it or about to see it, those have, what an incredible project. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you.
Where did you get the idea for the film?
I actually got the idea at about 3 in the morning during a bout of insomnia, and was just sort of, as you do, thinking about things you've read recently, or and I started thinking about, there was this was I think around 2017, or it was not too long after Trump had won. And they were planning, there was a group that was planning democracy rallies all over the country, pro-democracy rallies. I don't know, like dozens of them. And I think there were some in outside of the country as well. And there was going to be one in Los Angeles. And I had heard, there were going to be thousands of people there. And it just kind of struck me as just so strange and almost like surreal that there was a need to have pro-democracy rallies at this level in the United States. I think I still hadn't really come to terms with the fact that we were now a country whose democracy was in danger. And I have always sort of been just really interested in politics and themes around political systems. And so I thought, I want to shoot that rally. And then I started thinking further, like, what else I want to, I was sort of brainstorming, in the middle of the night and thinking, maybe that's the culminating scene for a film, is at that rally. And then I came up with a story that could culminate there. Didn't have a whole lot of time left to shoot. So this all happened really, really quickly. I came up with a script. I came up with a, at least enough so that I could get my actors ready and cast those two roles, and then shot the rest of it over time. So it was a very strange process of coming up with an idea that actually I was very passionate about it, and which is good because it took forever to get it done. And yeah, and I think that actually is a good way to come up with an idea of something that sort of hits you in the middle of the night like that.
Was all of it filmed in or around LA? Is that pretty much where y'all filmed everything?
Yeah, there are a couple of scenes that took us as far away as the Mojave Desert, the very beginning scenes, but that's as far out of LA as we got, about 3 hours. But otherwise it's all LA, but we were trying to film it in a way that couldn't necessarily be identified as LA. That wasn't really an intentional part of the story. It was supposed to be sort of like anywhere
Right. So how many shooting days did y'all have for this particular film?
I think altogether, including pickups and everything, it ended up being around 8 to 10 days.
Right on. So what's particularly inspiring that what inspired you about this story specifically? Like obviously the election and that kind of caught you and pushed you in that, but like what specifically inspired you about how you told the story?
I think there were a couple of things. First of all, like I said, I have this sort of obsession with um, how politics affects people on a sort of psychological, personal level, and that connection. So there's a lot of films out there that kind of look at that. They tend to be about countries that have gone through really, you know, um, tough times, like The Unbearable Lightness of Being is an example, or Cabaret is an example of films that really look at kind of how people are affected by living under a I can't talk. I'm just not even gonna say it. Under a dictatorship or
Yeah.
under a autocratic rule. And so that was one thing. I was just sort of on a daily basis kind of seeing news headlines about what was going on with North Korea, and we were in big trouble there. The law seemed to matter a lot less in ways that we sort of assumed that the law did matter, and that just all these things sort of were culminating, and I was really freaked out by it all, and couldn't believe that our country was kind of sliding in this way. Then so that was kind of one impetus. The other is another obsession of mine is sort of voter suppression and voter how much effort is put into by certain politicians to not allow people to vote. And I would like to I sort of have a film in the works about that, a documentary, but I just sort of came up with an idea that was sort of the sort of thriller aspect. Oh wait, this is before they see the film, so I shouldn't. That was this idea of ballots being destroyed. That I needed to come up with something that was visual, and so that's how I came up with that particular scheme. One thing for Kansas viewers, I based a lot of the scheme on some stuff that Chris Kobach had done with his voter suppression scheme that he took national, where it got rid of a lot of voters off of the roll. So he was one of my inspirations for coming up with the scheme, but the scheme is not based on any one scheme. It's just one I kind of, so those two things sort of together.
Right. And it's still terrifying. It's just like to even think about that, to say the least. Like it's just, we were talking about this earlier, like how like this film, you made this film and it was based on something that struck you in 2016, but like today it's like more relevant than ever. And like, it's actually like, that is a big thing that people are talking about right now, especially with the pandemic and having to mail in vote. Like it's kind of surreal, going to, what were some of the greatest challenges you had making this film? Was there anything like that you found extraordinarily difficult compared to other films and projects?
Well, I gave myself the challenge intentionally to film a narrative story at an uncontrolled, a huge rally. I don't know, I wanted to give myself something that was really difficult and challenging to do, but I knew that if it worked, it would probably pay off because it would come across as authentic. And I mean, who's to say how successfully it came off, but I felt like we had everything we needed to cut it together, and that we got some really amazing kind of verite moments because we shot it that way. My favorite is the guy screaming, danger, danger, what is it? There's a fascist in the White House. He just came along right at the right time. You couldn't have paid an extra to do that any better. So that was a huge challenge, and it was the first thing we shot because we had to shoot it while the rally was only happening once. So it was kind of like, if we don't get everything we need, we don't have it. We were already thinking, well, there might be the science march is coming up. I guess we could get pickups there, but we didn't need to do that. So.
Yeah. That's the truth. How do you? So yeah, I mean, I didn't. I thought you staged the whole thing. Honestly, like it looked really great. Yeah. It looked great. Like, and I've just been. I mean, it looks so realistic. Kind of. Yeah, great job. Really, really good job.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
No, I mean, so like the acting, with the actors in the scenes, like obviously, that's a part of the film, but I thought they were extras. I mean, I thought it was just a part of the whole thing. So cool. Well done, definitely. What kind of other unexpected things happen along the way? Like I know y'all are covering a lot of space, like getting out to the desert and coming back. And what kind of unexpected things happen along the way making the film?
Let's see. Well, one just kind of funny thing is we had to shoot some pickups towards the end, and the actress, it had been a while, and her hair was like 5 inches longer than it had been. And so we had to, we had a really good hair and makeup person that somehow managed to make it, I still don't even, somehow managed to make it look the same. And it was like, of course, it was like we needed extreme close-ups, and it was like, it wouldn't, I was really afraid we wouldn't sell it, but nobody who's watched it has commented on it, so I'm just not even going to say what it is. But yeah, so that was challenging. Something that was challenging kind of in a different way was from a sort of casting perspective was I really, we shot the stuff with the politician, Teresa Fainter. That was one of the last things we shot, and I really wanted Annabeth Gish, who I know a little bit, and I just thought would be so great in that role. So it was, I guess you could say, personally challenging for me to, approach an actress, a really, highly regarded, respected actress for a short film, and sort of taking that personal kind of, when you're in film, you're constantly getting rejected or having people tell you no. And so when she said yes, she wanted to do it, and she was really, the issues were important to her. So that was challenging for me to kind of take that leap and in casting and sort of putting myself out there. But then it turned out, and then it was also challenging to direct someone that I felt like, was at a certain level. She'd just come off of a Netflix show. And so, for my little independent film, it was, I wanted to make sure
It's remarkable.
Yeah. So I guess, I mean, that, I don't know if that's exactly the way that was.
Yeah. It was great. And
challenging.
And she was great too. Like that whole setup and scene was really great in the film. And I don't want to give anything away to anybody who hasn't seen it yet, but very well cast.
Yeah, she's amazing.
What about the film?
Amazing.
Yeah. What about this film are you most proud of?
I think, well, you said something earlier about it sort of becoming more timely, sort of because of the pandemic, which of course I had no knowledge of, but suddenly absentee ballots are, something that everyone's sort of looking at, and mail-in ballots and fraud. And so I guess, hopefully the film has a kind of timelessness to it and is something that we can kind of go back to as a document. That was my intent, was to capture history as it was happening, because from the moment he was elected, I thought, this is going to be a 4 years or however many years that we're all going to live through. And that it certainly felt like that at the time. I think, who knows what's going to happen in a few weeks. I think he'll probably lose, but I think I really wanted to sort of capture the immediacy of history as it was happening. And I intentionally did that, which a lot of people think that's a stupid thing to do because you immediately make yourself dated. But to me, it was really important to do it because I think sort of trying to capture history when it's already over can have a less immediate quality to it. And so I intentionally wanted to try to capture what was happening, you know, in real life with people. I mean, including the actors who, you know, were at the march. I mean, they were, you know, for some of it, they were very genuine reactions to being there. And everyone, all of the actors in the film were very engaged with the issues. So it did have that kind of documentary quality to it. Also, not just being there, but that everyone was actually living. Everyone was living through this while they were telling this story. So I guess that makes it kind of, I don't know, meta or something.
It's got to be. Yeah, it's a really good point, especially nowadays. I mean, I can only imagine like what that's like, portraying some of these things and actually going through that at the same time. So, you know, we're now 2020. What's up? What next for you? Like, what's on the books? Like, anything coming up? You writing or anything in the development phase? Or
oh, can I mention one more thing that was challenging?
Yeah, please do.
I was just going to say, was getting a certain production value. I meant to say this, was getting a certain production value with a not that large budget. And the way we sort of pulled that off was kind of the typical reasons you hear, ways you hear from a lot of people. One of my very best friends was also my DP. So she shot it. She didn't charge or anything, and she was, you know, kind of more of a partner. Other people worked for free who were, you know, whether it was paying back a favor or you know, I did something on their film, or they just were really believed in I had students who helped on the film. I teach film, so I have access to students who want to get practice. So I had a lot of them, or PAs and stuff, and then just you know, getting cameras and from really either reasonable or no price. So I mean, it's not like we didn't put any money into the film, but we probably put a lot less into it than maybe it looks like. So
it looks great, and it's truly, that's independent. Like, that's independent films, right? Like, you gotta like just make it happen.
Yeah, it's not easy, but and some things you got to pay for, or you're not going to get. I mean, you can't slide with a bad mix or something. But so it's not like we made it for free, but definitely you know, pulled in some favors and such.
That's terrific. So what's up next for you? What's on your agenda?
Yeah, so I've got a few. I have a few both television pilots and documentary pitches that I sort of have kind of waiting for. You know, you always have a bunch of stuff and sort of waiting for what seems like a good time to pitch. During the pandemic, I think it's a good time to be pitching things that are sort of smaller. For if you're talking about going into production soon. So I'm actually working on a script now that's a political thriller that is much smaller, that could be done, you know, without too many locations and that kind of thing, just to be practical. And I would like to shoot a feature, you know, as my next thing, whether it's a documentary or narrative, sort of depending on timing and what I can raise money for. So, but I think definitely I really like the political thriller genre.
I do too.
Yeah,
very well done. I really hope to see more from you in that, because I thought it was really a great job, and a little bit of a cliffhanger I felt like at the end too. So maybe, I don't know, maybe there's a segue into that. I don't know. So tell me something. I read this on, it might've been on IMDb, or maybe it was on the Film Freeway page. you had a quote, and I want to ask you about it. But your quote was, "A resolution to our political crisis is the biggest question mark facing our country right now, and the questions change daily." Do you see a resolution on the horizon? Like that quote was obviously before all of this, but like, what are your thoughts on it?
That's a great question. I think the biggest resolution, and I don't really consider this a partisan statement, because I think the person who's president right now just isn't qualified objectively, doesn't have what it takes to run the government, doesn't have what it takes to manage a crisis, which is why we're in this terrible, terrible health crisis now that's just, tragic and heartbreaking. So I think to find resolution to that particular crisis would mean a new president, and possibly a new Senate, because it's hard for the president to get anything done if the Senate, or either the House or the Senate, is blocking him or her. I think a resolution to the pandemic crisis, to the economic crisis, to the democracy crisis, to the crisis as climate crisis, to the crisis of how we're viewed globally. I think all of that is salvageable if we have an election where we elect, somebody else. And, I think, just from an objective standpoint, this person just isn't qualified to do the job of president. And so much damage has been done. And I think another 4 years would really, I don't think any of those things would do well at all. So, I mean, in the way it's that simple, but the answers are still very difficult.
Difficult, right? And so, in having such a huge space or platform with all these young budding filmmakers, and having said what you just did, like, is there any advice you could give to young filmmakers? Like, because a lot of people, like, I view film as a way of protest, or a way of making change, or a way of like shining a light on things. And so, what's some advice you would give like your students or people who are filmmakers coming up that could really help in these situations?
Yeah, I think if there's an issue that you really, really care about for some reason, whatever the reason is, if you have a personal connection to it, if you just are passionate about it for whatever reason, go in that direction, because that's where your best work is going to come from. And don't try to make a film about another issue because you think it's the right issue to, this is the issue of the month. Do it on what you care about, where you can bring something to the table. Maybe you have a great character that or you have some kind of insight or just passion for it. That's definitely advice that I wish I had gotten. I guess also, don't be scared to try something, to try to do something hard. I actually, like I said, I gave myself the challenge of trying to do something that seemed really hard. And I think that if you don't let fear lead you, if you sort of always are trying new things, and, if there's someone you want to interview and you're scared to approach them, just do it. That kind of thing. Just don't ever let fear keep you from making the film or address or approaching the issue that you want to approach, unless like your life is in danger or something. I mean, that's a different, then talk to your parents, but yeah, I guess those are a couple of things.
Fantastic. Well, thank you again, Karen, for your time today. We really appreciate it. And Hidden Cities, the film, and I hope everybody gets a chance to check it out, and have a great festival. Okay. Thank you again, Karen. I appreciate it.
Thank you.